Okay, there we go. Hi, this is Lunch with Laura. I hope you're having a good day so far. And for some reason, I look really dark today. Let me see if I can make the lighting a little bit better. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. Sometimes you don't really see that until you go live. Okay, here we go. That's a little bit better. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about, when you spying on your husband to get a leg up, and how that's always really a really bad idea. It's a recipe for disaster. Okay, and sometimes when you are considering filing for divorce, or you're already in the divorce process, or even if you're in another case, say for example, it's after the divorce and you guys are arguing about custody or visitation or whatever it is. You may be in a place where you're feeling like there's a lot of anxiety. You don't know what life's going to look like after divorce. You don't know what's going to happen, or sometimes you feel like if you haven't worked a lot during the marriage, and you feel like any job that you can get now, you feel like it's not going to be enough to meet your needs. It's not going to be enough for you to live on, and sometimes your mind can start racing, and you start thinking about what can I do to get an advantage? What can I do to get a leg up? What can I do to tip the scales in my favor? So that way, things will come out better for me, because I don't know what this process is. I don't know, what's ahead of me, and I'm scared. And that's an absolutely normal and natural reaction, to be afraid of what, you just don't know how things are going to turn out. And so, but what I want to impress upon you is that it's not a place where you want to stay. It's not a place where you really want to set up your tent and live. It's just not a place where, hey Willow, if you have comments, if you're watching live, I would love to hear from you. If you're watching a tape version, I would love to hear from you. So absolutely feel free to leave your comments. But we're talking about when you're afraid of what's ahead of you, and you start to think up ways to get an advantage against your husband in a divorce case, or or against your ex if it's after the divorce, and that's really not a place where you want to be. Um, you know, you may feel that you're the worst outcome is X, and I have to figure out a way to get to find out, to get the dirt on him, or find out how to what can I do to dig up something. I should look where he's been on the internet. I know he's doing stuff on there, or I should look in his email account. That's what I need to do. He gave me his email account before. He gave me his password, so he's so stupid. He didn't change it. You know what? And so what? I'm just going to use his password and go into his internet email account. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Now, it's actually always a bad idea to do things like that, or to take his mail out of the mailbox. I'm just going to open it. If your name is not also on the piece of mail, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And here's why. When you operate out of a place of fear and anxiety and desperation, you're almost always going to make a rash decision that might have consequences that you don't intend. It might have bad consequences that and bring you into a place of all types of different trouble and other things that you otherwise would not have had to deal with. Okay? And so you don't want to put that on yourself. You don't want to end up essentially giving your case away. You don't want to do that. Okay? I know sometimes it's hard to trust in the process. It's hard to say, if you're a believer, it's hard to say, God, please help me in this. I need to trust you and not lean on my own understanding and try to figure out things to tip things into my advantage. Okay? But I'm going to ask you to trust the process. Trust it. And here's why. These are some of the things that I've seen and heard that have happened to people who have kind of gone down that path, and that they otherwise would not have had to face. Okay? Number one is, depending on what state you live in, you might open yourself up to possible criminal charges. Now, what do I mean by that? I know you guys have always heard a term of wiretapping. What does that mean, wiretapping? In your state, the definition of wiretapping may include people going into a password-protected email account, even if you're still married to him. At the time that you do it, it still might be considered wiretapping, so you don't want to do that. You absolutely don't want to do that, okay? So even if it's on a household computer that he's using, it's a computer that everybody uses, the kids, you, him, doesn't matter. If it's password protected, you don't want to do that, okay? So whenever you're thinking about going down that path, always, always, always talk to a lawyer, before you even make one move down that road, okay? And I've spoken about this before, but if you say, I can't afford to talk to an attorney, it's too expensive. What I would suggest that you do is, and I've mentioned this before, if you have you do have a state bar association, a lot of times look on the website, they will have an attorney referral tab. Click on that, and a lot of times, you can get a half-hour consultation for dirt cheap. For example, if you're in Texas, if you go to the Texas State Bar website and you go on attorney referral, you can get a half hour for $20. Okay, that's all you pay is $20. You can get a half hour with an attorney. So you write down your questions. One of them being like, could I get in trouble for accessing my husband's account? Ask those questions. Use that time wisely and get your questions answered. Okay, or even if your city is large enough to have their own local bar association, or a lot of times your county that you live in will have a bar association that has an attorney referral program, and you can get referrals for dirt cheap. Okay, so that's one way to talk to an attorney to get that question answered. Find out what the law is in your state. Okay. Number two is you can be sanctioned by the court for doing that. So even if they don't bring up criminal charges within your divorce case or within your custody case or child support case, whatever it is, you can be sanctioned money, being made to pay money for breaking into someone's email account, or for going in, for example, your husband can have it password protected for him to even go in and get onto the internet. If you have that password and you use it, and things are things are going bad between you, and you can go in there to use it to get evidence, to find out what's going on, to get some dirt on them, to dig up something, you can be sanctioned for that. Okay, and say, for example, if you live in Texas, you could be sanctioned $1,000 each time that you access his account, or each time that you access getting on to and signing on the computer as him. Okay, so you don't want to open up yourself to that type of financial liability. Okay, you just don't do that to yourself. But like I said, you're giving your case away. Don't do that. Don't do that, because a lot of times all the stuff that you are afraid of, if he says to you in an argument, I'm going to get the kids and you're going to pay me child support and blah 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 blah. If you're the one who's been doing all the heavy lifting with the kids, if you're the one that always takes them to the doctor's appointment, you're always one that shows up for the parent-teacher conference, you're the ones that always do the day-to-day stuff for your kids, talk to an attorney in your area and say, what's the likelihood he can really actually get custody? And again, go through the attorney referral program and get those questions answered. If you're scared about something, if he's been barking about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to take all the money, I'm going to take all the retirement, ask, an attorney in your area. Don't suffer and not know because you think it's too expensive to even just sit down in a half hour with an attorney, okay? Make sure that you do that and get your questions answered, so you're not sitting at night suffering, worrying about this, meditating on it, just letting it occupy space in your brain. That's what it's doing. It's occupying space in your brain. You don't want that, okay? Get your questions answered. Dang it, I got bit by a mosquito. All right, sorry. And doing it to him number three is doing it to him might encourage him to do it to you. So you don't want to start spying on his computer and he turn around and start spying and see where you've been. Because sometimes when we're in the process of doing it and we're scared, we don't really realize what some of the things that we may be, some of the things, hey, we don't want him to find out about X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying you're out there doing something wrong, but, there may be something that can be construed against you. It's not something that, you want to open yourself up to, okay? So you just want to be very, very careful. And sometimes, too, you can open up yourself to that and he not even have to, break into your email account, or him even having to break in and sign on as you. How many times have you been on the computer and left your computer to go to the bathroom? He doesn't have to use a password to get in, right? Because the computer was already open to the internet. You'd be surprised. You're in there for a few minutes, and you'd be surprised when you'd be able to print off, or sometimes take his phone, and take a picture of what's on your computer screen. There's stuff like that that can happen that you don't want to open up yourself to. You don't want to encourage him to do it to you, okay? Because like I said, there might be some things that can be construed and turned around and used against you that he otherwise would not have had access to. And bear in mind, too, there are ways for you to get the information that you think that you need. For example, if you think he's seeing somebody else when you guys are still married, there is a process called discovery. That's what's called here in Texas. We call something similar to where you live. And that's where you request information back and forth. You can ask about, what bank accounts do you have? Show me all of your emails between you and so, you and Sally Sue. I think you think you're dating her, and you show me every single email that you have between you and Sally Sue and her response to you. You can legally ask for those things. So don't resort to, going in and breaking in and using someone's password to get the information. There's legal ways for doing it. Now, obviously, there's a cost associated with that. But you always want to stay above board. You always want to go on the high road. You always want to take the high road. You always want to make sure that you're doing things the right way, because doing them the wrong way can cost you a lot more. You think the discovery process is expensive, but you don't want to be sanctioned because that could cost you a lot more money than going ahead and doing it the right way, okay? So those are really the important things that I want to stress today. Let me just recap. Number one is you can open up yourself to criminal charges. Number two is you can be sanctioned by the court. And number three is you can encourage him to dig up stuff on you. You don't want to start that tit-for-tat stuff. It is awful and makes the process so much worse than it needs to be. And who wants that, right? Because when things blow up, it always gets more expensive. When you guys get mad at each other, you're always going to end up paying more money. And the kids will pick up on more of the animosity between you. And it's just an ugly scene all the way around. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation, okay? So, I know sometimes it can be hard. And I know today's Lunch with Laura is a little bit harsh, so I'm sorry about that. But I want to make sure that you're aware of this situation, that you're aware of these things can happen if you panic and then decide to try to figure out things on your own, okay? Make sure, even if you can't hire the attorney, have the consultation anyway. Like I said, a lot of times it's going to be dirt cheap, and it's going to be so worth it. Just make sure you write down your questions and write them down in order of importance. So that way, if you run out of time, you have your most important questions at the top and you get those answered, okay? So make sure that you do that. I know sometimes it can be hard to be optimistic when you're afraid and you're not sure how things are going to turn out, but you know what? God is good. And He always turns things around for our good. Even if it's things that look like they're negative, He always turns around things for our good. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Don't go in an area that's not in your nature and your character and start doing things that is not going to be settled well in your heart. Okay? So I love you guys. Thank you for spending a little bit more of your lunch with me. This has been Lunch with Laura. I hope you enjoy the rest of your lunch and have a good rest of the day. Take care.